Hey guys, I picked up a Deck Builder's Toolkit for $20 at Target, and I'm going to be opening it and building a deck. So let me start off with this. I know certain people are only going to want to see specific parts of this whole process. I'm going to try to put the numbers to skip through and kind of like chapters in a book, and I'm going to so you can skip through and see the parts you want to see. Because a lot of you have seen these opened, you know all the generic cards they come with, and you just might want to see the booster pack openings. So I'll try to do that for you. Alright. Let me find my knife. Apparently it's in my pocket. Alright. Opening. I have bought these before, and they're a very good product, whether you're starting out or you're new. So, do not hesitate to buy these. Either way, they are well worth your money. Okay, we'll be starting off. Here's the insides. You got an empty box here just to hold stuff. You got a cat that's about to jump on my camera and just knock something over. Alright. You got, these are not important unless you're very new. They got how to play and stuff. Tips to building a deck. You get 4 booster packs. You get a 2011 core set, another one, a Scars of Mirrodin, and a Mirrodin Besieged. Before we open those, we're going to go through these. Now, you get a total of 287 extra cards in this. That's very good for your money's worth. Now, these generic cards, you're not going to be getting any rares in. You're going to be getting lands and cards that are both uncommon and common. And there's one pack in here that is randomly assorted, so you have a chance of getting some very good staples, lightning bolts and whatnot. So as you can see, that was all land. We'll go on to another one. Oh man, these are tough to freaking open. Harder than they should be. Definitely, since I'm recording this, it'd be nice if it was a little easier. There we go. You got a Overgrown Battlement, Verdant Emissary, or Verdian Emissary. This is a very good card. Giant Spider, Alpha Tyrannex, Spined Worm, another very good card, Haro. This is not necessarily very good, but very good for learning the game and learning battle tricks and whatnot. It's very simple. A Plummet, a Naturalize, a Savage Silhouette, Sarah Angel, Condemn, another very good card, Mind Control, Jace's Ingenuity, Corrupt, Skin Render, Fireball, one of my favorite cards. It's not necessarily good, it's just a card I learned to play with and I love it. A Prodigal Pyromancer, Garruk's Pack Leader, very good card for green. Another very good card, but the downside is 3 green, so it has to be mono green. Leatherback Bulleth, some more lands. So I think you get about 24, maybe 20 to 24 of each land. Here's the entire pile of land you get, so it's a good chunk. It's not quite half, but it's about half, so keep that in mind if you're buying this and you already have a lot of cards, because you will be getting that. Alright, here's another one. Oh yeah, okay. I don't know how to say that. Some mirror. You can read it. Strider Harness, Prophetic Prism. These are great. They're like Terramorphic Expanse. Good for mana fixing. Pilgrim's Eye, Infantry Veteran. Very good card. It's going to let you gain a life whenever a creature enters the battlefield. It's a safe bet just to put this in just about any white deck you make, and it will benefit it. Squadron Hawks, Core Skyfisher, Core Hookmaster. Oh yeah, Core's kind of a theme in this now. I'm not sure what a core is. Assault Griffin, Cloud Crusader, 2 Pacifism, very good. Solemn Offering, Safe Passage, Inspired Charge. Here's some blue cards. Agri Owl, Scroll Thief, Cloud Elemental, Ether Adept, Azura Drake, Plated Sea Strider, Soraka Banisher, I don't even know if I said that right, a couple cancels, Mana Leaks, very good. Foresee, Preordain, that's a good card, that's about $1.50 just for a common. Well, I don't actually know if it's still $1.50, I think it might have got banned in Modern. Ice Cage, Gruul Daw's Vampire. Oh yeah, these come with plenty of vampires, so like if you're new, you can pretty much build a vampire deck straight out of this easily, and it will be pretty good. Bloodseeker, Viscera Seer, Child of Night, Cadaver Ape, Crypt Reaper or Ripper, Jagwasp Swarm, couple Doomblades, very good cards. Duress, Quag Sickness, Sign in Blood, Grasp in Darkness, another good card, it's creature removal. A Goblin Tunneler, Fiery Hellhound, Volshock Heartstroker, Arc Runner, Manig Vindel, Org Register, Berserker of Bloodridge, a couple Lightning Bolts, those are very good. A Flame Slash, Chandra's Outrage, Act of Treason, Demolish, 2 Llanowar Elves, a Garruk's Companion, again 2 green, so it's going to be a mono green deck. Let's get to this last part. Now this last one, it comes with Terramorphic Expanses, and they'll be in, let me move this box for you, they'll be in between these, will be certain colors or artifact, and those are going to be randomly assorted cards, so you have a chance of getting many good cards in here. I mean, the first one I bought, I ended up having a total of 5 lightning bolts after I opened all the cards. So, I mean, this will help you start a collection right off the bat if you're interested in this. So, there's your Terramorphic Expanse. You got Lillian's Caress, Rise from the Grave, Bloodhusk Ritualist, Mind Sludge, Liliana Spectre, you got 2 of those, a Mind Rot, Phyrexian Rager, Psychic Misma? I never even seen that card, and I played this quite a bit. Last Kiss, another Terramorphic Expanse, so now we're in the red. Chandra's Spitfire, Fire Servant, Forked Bolt, I love this card. Cunning Spark Mage, Kiln Fiend, 2 of those. Another Flame Slash, another Arc Runner, a Lava Axe, a Fling, a 3rd Terramorphic Expanse. For some blue, and white it looks like, we got Air Servant, Sleep, Sarah's Angel, Oust, 2 Stormfront Pegasus, another Ether Adept, Unsummon. That is a good card. Arrest, Negate. Your last Terramorphic Expanse, you get 4 of them in any deck builders, unless they make a mistake, of course. Okay, you got a Duskscale Worm, a Paleka Worm, a Frontier Guide, Boleth Woodcrasher, Cultivates, very good cards, Explore, Overgrown Battlement, another one, Ondu Giant, pretty good, and a Yavimaya Worm. Alright, now we're going to get on to, and they fell. So now we're going to get on to the booster packs. We'll save the core set ones for last, because those are my favorite sets. I like these Mirrodin sets, but they're just not my favorite that have come out. My favorite so far is probably the Alara block. I know it doesn't come with the best cards, but as far as just theme and look and the fun of playing, that set is very good. Alright, for commons we have Crush, Turn the Tide. We have Liana Skyhunter, I believe you say it, Bladed Citadel, Orcs Resistor, Mearsire, Horrifying Revelation, Steel Sabotage, Dross Ripper. And if I pass a good card and I don't say it's a good card, that's because I'm really not that familiar with this set. I just haven't played much out of it. Phrasis, I don't know if I said that right. Malera's Keepers, Lead the Stampede, we're in uncommons now. I don't know how to say that. And our rares of Black Sun Zenith. And Soldier Token. I love tokens. And a Forest. So we'll put that over here. Alright, and my cat just knocked something over again. She just wants this video to fail bad. But I'm not going to let that happen. Or, oh, maybe I will, because this is being ridiculous. And I don't want to try to take the chance of using my knife on it. That would be horrible. Alright, get out of there. Thank you. I don't use this, but I noticed in the Wizards coverage of the Worlds, this was a very popular card, so it might be, you know, past the generic cost of 25 cents. It may be even up to $1, I'm not sure. Hey, stop clawing on my stuff. Alright, she's just gonna keep doing that. Lambrogid Drake, Pharaohvor, Norok Replica, no idea. Defiance is the last word in that. So, a Shatter, classic card. A White Sun's Passage. Timble Magnet. Screeching Silka. Oxida Daredevil. Okay, uncommons. Trigun. I love Trigun, so that's not Trigun. Trigon of Infestation. Infiltration Lens? Infiltration. I feel like an idiot. Riddlesmith, and our rare is something I've never heard of. Memorcide. Oh, and another Soldier Token. Alright, let's put that over there. I just bumped the camera. Sorry if I've done that a few times, I can't really tell. And my cat knocked something over again. Let's try to get this core set open in a timely fashion. Alright. Garruk's Companion. Berserker of Bloodridge. Scroll Thief. Giant Spider. Goblin Piker. Another Arc Runner. Jace's Eraser. I think it's a pretty good card, but I don't see it much as far as actually in decks. Tireless Missionaries. Goblin Balloon Brigade. Naturalize, or in uncommons. Shiv's Embrace. Combust. What is that? Alluring Siren. And our rare is a Cyclops Gladiator. And a tip card. Alright. No big score on the rares, but I don't think that will hurt us as far as building a deck with this. It's going to be mainly depending on how good we get of each color anyway. So we got Assassinate, a Wild Griffin, Negate, Ether Adept, Wall of Vines, Fling, Infantry Veteran, Lava Axe, Stabbing Pain, Rise from the Grave, Ember Hauler, Prized Unicorn, Angelic Arbiter. That's a good one. And Island, and a shiny Goblin's Pike. This is a pretty good card. It costs a lot. You wouldn't see it in a normal game, but I've ran it in Commander and it destroys people. Alright, I'm going to stop this video, throw my cat out because it's making a lot of noise, then we'll get back to the deck building. Be right back. Alright, sorry about that. So we're back. So as you can see, the rares definitely lacked in this. It's very disappointing. But this is a very hefty pile of cards for $20. As the box says, you get 285 cards. I'm not sure if that counts the booster packs or not. But that is a big stack of cards for $20. And we're going to just pretty much, I'm going to sort all these out in color, which is the first step to making deck building. And then we'll come back and we'll analyze each color, see what our best options are, and go into making the deck. So we're going to go over our options as far as good cards in each color. And we're going to try to pick out the ups and downs, or pros and cons of each color, depending on which cards we got. And we're going to see what colors would best fit our strategy we want to go for, and just the availability of good cards. You don't want to use your favorite color when you're first starting out with Magic if you're just getting crap cards in that color. You want to go with your best option. And we're going to start with red. So these are burn cards. Red strategy is really fast. Alright, they got about 3 strategies, 2 popular ones. Really fast, just bringing out creatures that can hit fast and hard, and instants and sorceries and creatures that can deal direct damage to creatures or players. The third strategy is more of an old school approach, and that's just using giant dragons, pretty much. Dragons are big flyers, but Magic has not been about their big flyers lately as far as red goes. So for our direct damage spells, we got 2 lightning bolts, we got a cunning spark mage, which has haste, and which means it can use its tap abilities and attack as soon as it comes out, and it taps to deal 1 damage to a player or creature. Prodigy Pyromancer, which has the same effect of dealing 1 damage to target creature or player. We have a Fireball. That X means it's going to do as much damage as you can pay, or you can pay 1 to add an extra target. So for the cost, say you pay a total of 5, you can use 1 of that 5 to deal 4 damage to something, or you can pay an extra to deal 3 damage divided as you choose, which means you can kill 1 creature that has 1 toughness plus do 2 damage to something else or another player. A Lava Axe, which is a sorcery, deals 5 damage to target player, so you cannot use it on a creature. There's 2 of those. Flame Slash, quite the opposite. It deals 4 damage to target creature, so it cannot be a player, which is definitely a downside. We got an Ember Hauler, lets you pay 1 colorless, sacrifice it to deal 2 damage to target creature or player. So that's a good option. You have, I believe, 2 Flings in here. What they do is, when you're playing them, you sacrifice a creature you control, and it deals its power, that creature's power, whatever its attack is, to a target player. So that's good. It's pretty good. You can block with the creature, and as it dies, use it at instant speed to sacrifice your creature that would already die, and then do some extra damage with it. Yep, 2 of those. You have a Forked Bolt, which is one of my favorites. It costs 1 red, and you get to do 2 damage divided as you choose among 1 or 2 target creature and or players. So you can kill a creature, and then if it only has 1 toughness, take the remaining 1 and hit another creature or a player, or you could just use the 2 damage to kill 1 bigger creature. There's lots of options. Shonda's Outrage is pretty powerful. It's also instant speed, which means you can play it at any time. It will do 4 damage to target creature, it does 4 damage to a creature and then 2 damage to that creature's controller. So it's a 2-in-1 card. Now we also got things that benefit from direct damage. We have 2 Kiln Fiends, and what they do is whenever you play a sorcery or instant spell, they'll get +3/+0 until the end of the turn. So you can attack with them. Maybe your opponent doesn't block because they think they're only going to take 1, or they just can't block it. Then what you can do, for instance, as an example, is you can play this at instant speed once they choose not to block. And this will deal the 4 damage to a creature and the 2 damage to a player. And in the same sense, since you're playing this, it will also be going to his effect, and he'll be hitting for 4 instead of 1. And you have 2 of those. And then you have a very similar card, but it has flying, and it costs 1 extra. Whenever an opponent is dealt non-combat damage, so it's not the same as this exactly, but when you're using cards like this, again, they'll be taking damage, and she'll be getting +3/+0 until the end of the turn. And then you have a Fire Servant, which would be a powerhouse in a red deck. If a red instant or sorcery spell you control would deal damage, it will deal double that instead. So if you put 5 into your Fireball and you're doing 4 damage to him, it's going to do 8 instead. So It's a very powerful card. Even it makes a simple lightning bolt do 6 damage for 1 red. And then we have one nifty little combo I found. These 2 cards are great. What he does is he makes a creature with 2 or less power unblockable. So what you do is you tap him with using his effect. You make this unblockable. You attack with it, and then once you attack and they cannot block, it goes to the battle or the damage step. Then you can pay as much red as you want to pump it up really big, and they cannot block it. So if you have 5 extra mana, you can pump this up to 7 attack and hit them with 7, and they cannot block it. So that's a very good option. And we'll go to green next. I believe green is possibly the best color just to go with if you're new. And it is a very basic, simple color. That doesn't mean it's not powerful. It's also very powerful. There are a lot of cards throughout history of Magic that are extremely overpowered, just abused like crazy, and a lot of them are on the ban list. And green, every set pushes its limits to bigger creatures and smaller costs, and they just, I guess the easy way to put it is don't underestimate green, but yes, it is a simple color, and I'll explain it. So green's clear-cut advantage is just being huge creatures, and the ability to get mana without just drawing and dropping it. It has ways to get a lot of mana really quick, straight from your library, or ways to play extra ones, or lots of creatures that tap as a land to produce mana. But we're going to start with the most simplest part of green, and that is just their giant creatures. So we have I don't even know how to say it, but it's pretty much a giant worm. And for the cost of 6, which is high, you're getting a 6/4, which is decent. But green's special ability that can just get through all these small creatures and get in their damage is this ability called Trample. And what it does is, when your creature attacks, say it attacks for 10, which there are cards that do that, but you have a creature that is attacking for 10 with Trample, and someone is blocking with a creature that has 5 defense, so 5 toughness. When they block, they're going to take all the leftover. So if they can only block 5 of that 10, they're going to take the other 5. It's just going to go straight through it. And that is how green gets a lot of damage in very quick. So we have a 6/4 for 6. We have a 7/7 also with Trample for 7. A 7/7 for 7 with Trample. But it's this on steroids, and here's why. It has Trample, so it's just as good. But when it enters the battlefield, you're going to gain 7 life. And when it is put into the graveyard, you're going to draw a card. So 2 upsides on an already good card. This card does not have Trample, but it really goes with the theme of green. It's called Garruk's Pack Leader. Whenever a creature with 3 or greater power comes into play, it's going to allow you to draw a card. And there's a good chance you're going to be playing something that with 3 or more attack every single turn. You're just drawing an extra card every turn, and you're not doing much to get that. You're not sacrificing anything. You're paying for a big creature for a decent cost of 5, and then you just get that added in ability. So it's a very good card for beginners because they're going to want to fill their hand and just flood the field. It's the easiest way to learn the game is learning the battle on the field before you learn all the rest. And it's Magic's most simplest form. You have this Wood Crasher guy. He doesn't have Trample right now, but it has a ability called Landfall. So whenever you drop a land, it's going to gain +4/+4 and Trample. So pretend you put a land down, right? He is now an 8/8. And pretend you use a card like Rampant Growth, which lets you search for a land and put it into play. Well, now he is a 12/12 with Trample. That's just for 1 turn, and all you had to do was pay and get an extra land with Rampant Growth. So he is very powerful. And imagine if you saved up your mana acceleration got a bunch of land on the same turn and swung with him. That could be a game-winning card right there. You have Leatherback Boleth. He does not have trample, but he only costs 3, and he's a 4/5. That is very, very good. Magic or Wizards used to hesitate printing a 2/2 for 2. And now they're at the point where they'll print a 4/5 for 3. It is getting freaking crazy, and it's good for green. Here is another cheap card. It only costs 2 green, and it's a 3/2 with trample. Absolutely no downside, just upside. And these have 3 or more attacks, so they're going to be letting you draw a card if you get that other guy out. Now, this actually should be under a different category. I'll come back to that later. You have Prized Unicorn. It costs quite a bit. But the thing is, let's just pretend you have 2 of these out. And you have this guy out. Well, his effect says all creatures able to block Prized Unicorn do so. So if you have 2 of these guys out, that's 6 damage. You attack with those 2 plus him. All their available creatures have to block this when it attacks. So you are guaranteed to get that 6 damage in, and there's no way they're going to block it. At least not with creatures. Now, there may be other tricks, but that's more advanced magic, like man lands that might be able to jump in and block. I don't even think that would work. They'd have to prevent damage and whatnot. So that is a very good card. And now we're going to move on to a second, which is another strategy of green, other than just being big, is green. Oops, I bumped the camera. Green almost never has flying creatures. It's very rare to see a flying green creature. But what they do have is they have cards with reach. And it is very good if you're playing against a lot of people who use flying. What reach does is it lets you block creatures with flying. So they can't just swing over your head constantly and win the game. And there are much more than just this, but in this toolkit it gives you a little of everything. So you've got 2 giant spiders with it. So if you're going with green, that is a good option. You almost need those because there is a lot of flying in this game. And Plummet is another anti-flying card. It destroys a creature with flying. So they can spend all their mana just pulling out a giant angel, like a 5/5 flyer, and you just pay 2 and kill it. It's that simple. You don't have to put this in your main deck. You can put it in your side deck or your sideboard and put it in when you know you're about to face someone with lots of flying. So you don't necessarily have to use it, but it's a great option. And then the last strategy, which I already touched on a little, is grabbing lots of mana. So typically you get to play 1 land from your hand per turn. These cards defy that rule. They are going to pull cards out of your library, out of your hand. There's cards that pull them out of your graveyard. It's crazy. So we have an Ondu Giant, which when he comes into play, he simply searches your library and puts a basic land into play. Tapped, but still. Now you have Llanowar Elves. These do not fetch you land. What they do is they tap and produce mana. So they act as if they were a land, yet they're still a creature. And they're going to help you a lot because they only cost 1. Oh, there you go. They only cost 1. If you play a forest, then a Llanowar Elf, that's your first turn. On your second turn, you're going to play another land, and you're going to have 3. Well, most other players will still only have 2 at that point, but you'll have 3 mana to bring out a 3-drop. And there are 2 of those. A Variadin Emissary, I believe I said that right. Now they're another search. That's going to search you a basic land and put it into play. But it's only going to do that when this goes into the graveyard. So what you want to do is pretty much throw this out there, attack a few times. If they're not blocking it to kill it off, you just block with it, let it die, get a land. Harrows. As an additional cost, you're going to sacrifice a land, but you're going to go get 2 more basic land and put them into play untapped. That can go very well with that landfall guy. This alone would put him up to 12. And if you had played a normal land before that, he would be up to 16 with trample. This lets you play an additional land. So if you have 2 land in your hand, you can play 1, cast this for 2, and then play another land. Cultivate. This is a good card. It searches for 2 basic lands. It puts one into your hand and the other into the battlefield tapped, and then you shuffle your library. But it came with 2 of those. But the downside of this is it does cost 3, and you're only putting 1 extra land into play. The upside is if you did not draw a land later in the game, you're going to put that land into your hand, and then you could put it right out on the battlefield because you hadn't played a land yet. And let's see, now we'll go on to white. So whites, they have a few strategies. They have control, they have life gain, and one of the great strategies to go with is just a lot of flyers if you're a beginner. Flying is kind of a premium thing. Only certain creatures are going to get to block it. They also have to have flying or reach. So it really works out well if you're just going to pour a bunch of flyers into play and start swarming your opponent. Now we're just going to quickly go through the flyers I have. Pretty much Angelic Arbiter. Each opponent who plays a spell cannot attack with creatures. Each opponent who attacks with creatures cannot play spells. So pretty much it's going to this covers the flying and the control aspect of the white strategy. It's going to limit them to either playing only creatures or no, it's going to either limit them to attacking with creatures or playing spells as like creatures or sorceries or instants, but they cannot do both. So that's a great card. Now the other ones are just going to be flying. We have Vigilance, means it does not tap when it attacks, so you can attack with it. It does not tap. That means it will be available to block other creatures the next turn. So it's a pretty good advantage. Other than that, it's a 4/4 flying for 5. There's 2 of those. We have Squadron Hawks. When they come into play, you get to go get all your other Squadron Hawks. So it's better to have 4 of these, but this only came with 2. So they're a 1/1 flyer for 2. This is a 3/2 flyer for 4, a 2/3 flyer with first strike for 4. And what's nice about first strike is if something, for example, has Death Touch, and Death Touch, what it does is when that creature deals damage to any other creature, it kills the other creature. Well, with first strike, it's going to deal its damage before any other creature. Unless that creature also has first strike, then it negates out both of them. So this can attack or block something with Death Touch, but it will do its damage first. So unless that creature can survive the 2 attack that it will be hitting it with, its Death Touch never touches it. And we have a 2/2 for 3 and a 2/1 for 2. We have 2 of those, and a 2/2 for 2. This is one of my favorite flyers in Magic. I use 4 of them in my night deck. We're going to go on to the other strategy I was talking about, which is life gain. Life gain you don't see as much. There's always something in decks, for the most part, that are going to gain you life, but to focus on it is a very big challenge. And, well, let's just get into it, because it's pretty simple. It's just going to gain you life. We have a Soul's Attendant, so whenever someone puts a creature into the battlefield, you're going to gain 1 life. We have a Solemn Offering, which destroys a artifact or enchantment, but you also get a gain 4 life. And we just have White Sun's Passage. You pay 2 and gain 5 life. So, oh, there's one more. Not as good, but we have Tireless Missionaries. It costs 5. When it comes into play, you gain 3 life. Then we have the last element, one of my favorites. This element is in both white and blue colors, and they both do it pretty well. This is the control aspect. You get to pretty much control what your opponent does. Not everything, but you can limit what they do a lot, and it will help you. When this comes into play, it's going to tap a creature, and that creature won't untap during the next turn, so it stays tapped that entire next turn. So it will not untap to block the next turn either. We have a Condemned, which puts an attacking creature on bottom of the library. It only costs 1, and that's extremely powerful. So the downside would be that when you do that, they're going to gain life equal to the toughness of that creature. So if you put something huge like a Dark Steel Colossus to the bottom of the deck, it's going to let them gain 11 life. So you got to think about that when you're using it. A pacifism, there's 2 of those. Enchanted creature can't attack or block. And it's an enchantment, so it stays in play. There's 2 of those. We have an arrest. Enchanted creature can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. So pretty much what this does is, every single ability a creature has, let's use, I don't know, this for example, because it's sitting in front of me. That says tap. Target attacking creature gets +1/+1 until the end of the turn. The fact that you choose to tap it, that means it's an activated ability. You have to activate it. It doesn't just happen, which would be a triggered ability. When something just happens, like for example, if something comes into play, then do this or that, that's a triggered ability. This arrest card is going to stop anything like this. So if it says pay 2 mana and do this or that, you can't activate it. If it says tap or pay life or discard a card to do something, you can't do that either. It's because you're choosing when to activate it. Alright, what color should we go to next? We're going to go to black next. So black has unique strategies. Often a beginner would not choose to learn with this color because it can get difficult. But it is a very powerful color, and it's arguably the most powerful color in this game. But a lot of people will argue against that. But seriously, it's probably the most powerful color. I personally don't use it very much, and I haven't used a lot of the older cards, so I don't really know. Anyways, there's three common strategies. There's forcing your opponent to discard cards, for killing your opponent's creatures, and bringing creatures back from the dead is the theme. So you can get creatures back from your graveyard that have previously died. And we're going to be starting with discard. And this is what we got the most of. We got a pretty hefty pile here, about, I don't know, it looks like 10 cards. I have no idea though, I'm not good at judging that. We have 2 Liliana Specters. They're a flyer, a 2/1 for 3. And when they enter the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. So if you're playing a 3 or 4 way, it's going to account for every player that's not you, pretty much. We have a Duress. This will let you look at your opponent's hand and choose a non-creature, non-land. So you can get rid of planeswalkers, artifacts, enchantments, sorceries, and I don't know. You can get rid of a lot of stuff. So it's pretty good. We have Bloodhusk Ritualist. This is a newer ability. It's called Multi-Kicker. And what that means is once you pay its 3, as you're casting it, you may pay an extra 1 as many times as you want. It can be once, you can not pay it at all, you can pay 5 or 10, and you're going to get this effect for each time you kicked it. So it says when it enters the battlefield, a target opponent's going to discard a card for each time this was kicked, which means for each time you paid its kicker cost. So you can pay an extra 3, which would be a total investment of 6. And you're going to make them discard 3 cards, so that's pretty powerful. A Mind Sludge. This is target player discards a card for each swamp you control. In an only black deck, that's going to be fantastic. By the time you're able to pay 5, which is what its cost is, you're typically going to have 5 swamps, so they're going to discard virtually their entire hand. You have more simpler cards, but are still powerful. You have a Mind Rot. And that's just pay 3, target player discards 2 cards. You have this, which does a little of everything, but I don't know, it's good. It pay 1, and what it does is target player discards a card, then he puts the top card of his library into his or her graveyard. So that can go with the blue milling theme, which is putting the top card of your library, of a player's library, into the graveyard. You have Psychic Masma. What's great about this card is it says target player discards a card. If a land was discarded, you get this card back. People are going to, more often than not, be discarding land cards because they don't want to discard their good spells. So they'll they'll more likely discard a non-land card, which is going to be more helpful than them to land most of the time. So you're forcing them to discard a good card, or you're forcing them to discard a land card, which means you're just going to get this back and use it again, so it doesn't matter. This is not necessarily a discard card. What it does is whenever an opponent discards a card, they lose 2 life. So with all these here in a black deck, you're going to play, say, that Mind Sludge or whatever it was called, where they discard a card for each swamp you control. Pretend they have 3 cards left in their hand in mid-game, and you make them discard that 3. So that was already helpful, but this adds to it. Now they're going to lose a total of 6 life. So normally, just making them discard 3 cards, that's already good. This is just one of those bonuses, and you want to think about that. You want to add on the most damage you can do and be very efficient with it. That's a big part of Magic. So another strategy to black, creature kill, and it's a powerful effect. This is a very simple one. Doomblade. Pay 2, destroy target non-black creature. So any color that's not black. So let's see here. We got an Assassinate. This will destroy a black creature, but the thing is, destroy a tapped creature. So you have to do it to a creature that has already attacked or tapped to use an effect. So let's see, we got Skin Render. This, when it comes into play, you put 3 -1/-1 counters on a creature. It won't always kill a creature, but if that creature is a 3 defense or smaller, it will kill it. And if not, put it on a 5/5, and that 5/5 just became a little 2/2. Not big of a threat then. We have a Corrupt, which will deal damage equal to the number of swamps you control. And you can do that to a creature or player. If they have a huge threat on the field, get rid of it. If they have a huge planeswalker, do it to a player and then redirect it to their planeswalker. Or you could just hit them with it. And it costs 6, so normally you're going to have six swamps, which is hitting for a lot. That's 6 damage, and you're going to gain whatever you do with that. If you're able to do 6 to 8 damage or anything like that, you're going to gain that much life. Even if it's only 6, that's hitting for 6, gaining 6, and getting rid of a threat. This is the same idea as the last one. You're going to put -1/-1 counters on creatures, but the really big upside to this is you pay X like a fireball. So if you pay the 2 black plus 4 more, it's going to give everything 4 -1/-1 counters. And they'll stay on it. So all their huge creatures will suddenly become small creatures, and all their creatures that were already small are just going to die off. And if that wasn't enough, it gets shuffled back into your library when you use it. That is absurd. You have a Quag Sickness. It gives a creature -1/-1 for each swamp you control. Now notice it doesn't say counter. It doesn't give it a -1/-1 counter. It gives it -1/-1. So if they kill this, that creature will get its full health back. It will no longer get those -1/-1 effect. Grasp of Darkness. Again, it does not say counter, so we'll only do it for until the end of the turn when the effect wears off. It gives something -4/-4. So it's going to kill something that has 4 or less defense, or it's going to make something smaller. So maybe you can shrink their big attacking creature and block it and kill it. If they hit with a 6/6, shrink it down to a 2/2, and then block with a 3/3. It's pretty good. This will give something a -1/-1 counter and tap a creature. So it's both creature kill or creature control. And we have a last effect, which I only have 3 cards for. It did not come with much for this effect. This is a reanimate type effect. You're going to be reusing creatures if you go for this effect. And a lot of the cards that do these similar things are very old cards, a lot older than what you see these days. So it will be quite a challenge to build a deck like this if you're a beginner. What this does is, it's a 1/1 flyer, so flying, and it costs 3. But when it enters the battlefield, you get to return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. And that will let you play him again later. What's great about this is it just costs 5, but it says put a creature card in a graveyard, as in any graveyard. If you Doomblade your opponent's huge creature, you can use this and get it to your side of the battlefield. The only thing is, when it comes into your battlefield, it will be a black zombie. but it will also be whatever else it was. So if it was a green beast, now it's a green and black card, and it's a beast and a zombie, because it's bringing it back from the grave. And our last color we got is blue. So okay, I was just looking over blue, and I realized something. I said there were three popular strategies. That would be drawing cards. That's not a strategy, but that is a key to blue. There was control, there was flying creatures, which is similar to white, and the control is similar to white as well. Then I said there was mill, where you put the top card of your library into the graveyard, and what this does is it does that to your opponent repeatedly, and they're typically called mill decks. But I was going to give you examples of those kinds of cards, and I looked through here and I realized I have one card that mills, and that's Jace's Erasure. So what I'm going to do is just, there, you see the card, and then get out of the way. I'm not even going to talk about it because I don't have any examples in here. So we're just going to stick to the drawing extra cards and the control aspect of it, and we're going to skip that. And as far as flying goes, it's the same idea as white. They have cards like this. See, this is a Drake. They have Drakes and Merfolk and things like that. But I don't want to explain the same thing twice, so we're going to get into this. These cards are going to help you draw cards. You're going to, in a blue deck, have more. The more cards you draw, the more answers you have to other problems. So drawing and keeping your hand filled in a blue deck is very, very good, because you're going to have answers to everything they do, and it's probably going to be a way to piss off an opponent, but this is just one aspect of the game, and they'll have to deal with it. What this does is, when it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card, and there's two of those. So we have Scry. Let me explain Scry real quick. A lot of new people, like I go to the card shop and I talk to some new people who are asking common questions, and a question I hear a lot is like, can you, or not necessarily a question, but what I see them do is I see them scry, not like the cards that they see, and then they're like, oh, I guess I'll just take this one, and then they put them back on top. You need to read scry and use it to its full ability. What it actually does is it lets you look at however many the number is. So scry 2, you're going to look at the top 2 cards of your library, and you're going to put any number of them on bottom and then the other ones on top. You do not have to put any of those cards back on top if you're not satisfied with it. If you scry 2 and you pick up 2 land cards and you don't need land, you can put them both on bottom and then draw a card. So you need, just if you're new, be sure you remember that, because that is a huge game changer. If you take cards you don't need, you're passing up something that could have helped you win the game. And the game's about having fun, but that doesn't mean you have to play bad, so don't think that at all. You still want to play to win and play to have fun. They're about equal in my opinion. So that scries 2 and draws a card. This scries 4 and draws 2 cards. So it just does that double. So you're going to look at the top 4 cards and rearrange them, put what ones you don't want on the bottom, and then draw the 2 cards. And then we have the last draw spell. It's Jace's Ingenuity. It doesn't let you scry. It's just pay 5, draw 3 cards. It's not bad, it's not great, but it's a good card for a beginner. And then we're going to get into the control aspect, and I do not remember if I sorted these in between turning the camera on and off. So if they're out of order, my bad. We have Mind Control. You enchant any creature that you want, pretty much. When they play a huge creature, say they play Garruk's Horde, that's a 7/7 with trample. Use Mind Control, take it, now that's your creature. So this is a very good card. There's a couple of these. They're called Ether Adept. What they do is they're a 2/2 for 3, but they have the upside of returning a creature to their owner's hands. So when they have a big threat out, you can just bounce it back to their hand, and then problem solved, which goes into a card like this. You bounce it back to their hand, and then you have one of these waiting for it. What this does is when they cast a spell from their hand, so like if they play a planeswalker or a creature or a sorcery, anything but a land pretty much, when they play that by paying its cost and all that, you can counter it with cards like this. And there are 2 of those. There might be more. Like I said, I don't think I sorted these. Mana Leaks, they cost 1 less. They only cost 1 blue. They're better for 2 color decks because you don't need 2 blue to play them. They counter target spell unless that controller pays 3. But typically you're going to be using this when they don't have 3 mana left. If they only have 6 land or 7 land and they play something for 5, that's a guaranteed counter. They can't stop it. And we have another control card, Ice Cage, and what it does is enchanted creature can't attack or block or activate its activated abilities. Its downside is when enchanted creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, it destroys Ice Cage. So you want to think about that. If you have better options, use them. But if you need to, this is a good option. You have Negate. This only counters a non-creature spell. So it can only counter instants, enchantments, artifacts, planeswalkers, things like that. So again, there are better options, but this could be a helpful card. Definitely if your friends play with a lot of creature heavy decks. If they have a 60 card deck and 30 of its creatures and then they have like only say 4 overruns, you definitely want to run these because you're going to be getting rid of all their huge creatures. They're never going to get to touch you with them. Another Ether Adept. Alright, an Unsummon. That is the same as this, except it's an instant for 1. Return target creature to its owner's hand. So that's a great way to save your own creatures. If you're desperate, they're about to maybe Doomblade your biggest guy and you want to save him, you can bounce him back to your hand, or you could just use it to bounce your opponent's creatures back to their hand. You have a Sleep. Now keep in mind you can only use this during your turn. You can't wait because it's a sorcery. And you would think it's an instant because it taps all their creatures, but you have to use it on your turn. So it taps all creatures, and those creatures don't untap during that next player's upkeep. But the creatures that were already tapped from attacking, they will untap, so you got to remember that. Another Negate, and another Aether Adept. There's 3 of those. And a Steel Sabotage. This is a multi-choice card. You pay 1 blue, and you choose one. You can counter target artifact spell or return target artifact to its owner's hands. So it's decent. And that was all the colors. I'll quickly go through the lands and the artifacts. Actually, you know what? I'll just do that right now. Here are the good ones. We have a Mearsire. We have a Glinthawk Idol. A Norok Replica that bounces creatures. When you sacrifice it, you have, let's see, really not much. You have Strider Harness. You pay 1 and it gives something haste, so you can keep paying 1 and giving everything you bring out haste. And that could help you. And then what you have is you have a Mana Fetch. When that enters the battlefield, it puts a basic land from your hand into play. It's not the best Mana Fetch, but the great thing about it is it's going to be Mana Fetch in any color. Normally you'd have to run green to be able to search your library for lands, but this is colorless. It means it can go into any deck. It can go into black, blue, red, white. Well, you get the point. So, now we're going to move on to the next step, which is picking what colors we're going to use after we've analyzed all this. Alright guys, I was looking over this video and I've realized it's looking to be very, very long. So I'm doing a couple things to cut time. Firstly, I already decided I'm going to be doing 2 decks with 2 different strategies because this video is going to be aimed towards newer people and hopefully it's going to be helpful to them. And another thing I'm doing to cut back on some time is instead of doing full 60 card decks, I'm going to do 40 card decks, and normally you would only do that in a draft tournament where you build decks straight out of the booster pack at the card shop and you play in a tournament. So keep in mind when I'm explaining this 40 card deck that you're going to want to expand it to a 60 card deck. So for example, 5 counter spells. Maybe in a 60 card deck 5 ain't going to be enough. You might want 7 to 10 or whatever you prefer. You'll play a while and get used to it. And we're going to be starting with these 40 card decks that I'm doing with the blue-white control. So we'll just jump into it. We have 5 versions of Counterspell. Well, I already went over all these cards, so pretty much I'll just name them. We have a negate, 2 negates, mana leak, and 2 cancels. For drawing, we have a preordain, a foresee, a Jace's Ingenuity. For creature control, to get rid of threats, we have a core Hookmaster, which will tap down other creatures, and that creature will stay tapped and will not untap during the next untap step, so it's out for about 2 turns. We have Condemned, which puts an attacking creature on the bottom of its owner's library, so that's another way to get rid of a creature. We have Unsummon, which returns target creature to its owner's hands, and we have 2 Aether Adepts, which will return target creature to its owner's hands, so it has a built-in Unsummon. For other versions of creature control, if you don't want to bounce them, we have Arrest, which enchanted creature cannot attack or block or activate its activated abilities. And we have 2 pacifisms. They will stop creatures from attacking or blocking. We have an Angelic Arbiter, and I went over this card. It's both a big flyer and very control, so it's good. It's going to cost a lot. You're not always going to get to play it, but when you do get to play it, it's going to be awesome. 2 Serra Angels, good flyers, and 2 Stormfront Pegasus, which are good flyers. Now I want to talk real quick about the picking mana for these decks when you're doing multicolor decks. And the best way to do it is look at cards that cost 2 or more of a specific mana. So let's count all these cards first. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 blue. Then count all the ones that have 2 or more mana of a certain color. So the ones that have 2 or more blue mana, we're going to count again. So that'd be 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So we're going to count that as 19. Now let's do it to white. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Count these ones again. 10, 11, 12, 13 because they cost 2 white. So we're looking at 19 and 13. I may be off because I'm rushing through it. But okay, let's just go with 19 and 13. So obviously you're going to also want to look at what cards can you afford to have in your hand and not be able to play when you look at the 2 colors. Well, I say that white's the least important because you're not going to want to have a cancel in your hand and not have the option of playing it. So you're always going to want to have 2 islands available to cast this. These are pretty important cards. You're always going to want to be able to deal with creatures. But it's okay to have those sit in your hand for a while. So let's put blue as the main priority. We always want to be able to play all our blue at all times. So 19 to 13 is what we counted. We're going to think of that with lands. And I'm not going to go an exact mathematic because pretty much I'm too math stupid to figure it out on the spot. So I'm going to guess that out of 17 land, which is how much space I left over, we're going to want about 10 to 11 islands and about 7 to 6 plains. Because remember, we're never going to not want to be able to play our cancels and our other adepts. They're high priority. If you want to throw in some terramorphic expanses which let you search for any of them, then you can consider running half and half. But you really don't want to take the risk. I've went through all that crap and it sucks. Once you get a bigger collection going and more advanced into Magic, you'll get into things like multicolor lands and stuff, and you'll be able to run pretty close to half and half, and it will be safe to do. Alright, so for me personally, I'm going to go 10 islands and 7 plains. And if I would add Terramorphic Expanse, I would go I'd go 9 islands, 6 plains, or not 6, 5 plains, and 2 Terramorphic Expanses. And now we're going to move on to the green and red deck, which will be the opposite strategy. Alright, we're here with green-red. This is absolutely nothing like the other deck. It's quite the opposite. So, I think I already said this, but in case I didn't, I'm not going to go too much in detail with all these cards, because chances are you watched me open them and talk about most of them already, because I tried to make this a detailed video. So what I'm going to do is just go through some key elements, what the idea behind this is. Again, this is only a 40 card deck because I'm trying to save time. Just to get through this part, because it's very simple, this is to make your deck faster than other people. People that aren't running green are most likely not going to have any way to get extra land. So you're going to have the advantage of getting extra land and be able to produce, well, you're going to produce a lot more mana than a normal non-green deck. And what we have to do that is we have 2 Cultivates, a Harrow, Explore, Ondu Giant, Verdian Emissary, and 2 Llanowar Elves. Now the idea behind this deck is going to be these flings and these big guys. To help along with, or here's an idea of what you would do first. Say you take Duskull Worm and attack. You tap him, attack for 7. And theoretically you hit with that 7. Now you're going to use Fling. You've done 7 damage. You use Fling. You sacrifice this creature and you deal damage equal to that power to a player. So you attack for 7, you pay 2, you sacrifice him, and you do another 7. You just done 14 damage. That's quite a bit. And theoretically, say you have this guy out. He's the guy with landfall that gets bigger. You're going to drop a land, your normal land for the turn. He is going to be a 8 until the end of the turn now. Then say you play a Harrow. You sacrifice a land and you get 2 more. Now he is a 16/16 with trample until the end of the turn. You attack with them. They're going to block as much as they can. Maybe they only take 10 damage because they're able to block 6. Or hell, even maybe they block 10 of it and they only take 6. You fling it for 18. You sacrifice it and deal 18 damage. So that is the main strategy to this. The other strategies are, you're going to be getting a lot of mana and producing a lot of mana. So you'll have enough to play for plenty of burn spells. You have the Fireball. So if you have 8 mana, you can put 8 into that and hit them for 7. That's a lot of damage. And a little strategy behind this, you're not always going to get to do it because there's only one of each, is Prize Unicorn. When you attack with that, your 2 big guys or whatever you have out is guaranteed to hit, because all their blocking creatures have to block this, and all their creatures have to block it. They can't even choose not to, unless their creature's tapped or it gets destroyed somehow in the midst of battle. It's going to have to block that. So again, you attack with that and that 7's going to hit them. Then you're going to use Fling, sacrifice it, and deal another 7. So you just hit them for 14. Then there's Act of Treason. What that does is gain control of target creature, untap that creature if it's tapped, and it gains haste too. So, but that's not the point. What is the point is you're going to take their creature, you're going to hit them with it, then you're going to use Fling to sacrifice it, because you only get it till the end of the turn. So to make sure that they don't get it back, you're going to sacrifice it with Fling and deal damage. So pretend you take a 4/4. Take the 4/4, hit them with it, fling it. You just did 8 damage. So this is a good idea to start off of. There's a lot of cards that take creatures, and you could put 4 flings in your deck. And maybe some effects that say sacrifice a creature to do this or that. You can take this idea and do that. You can steal their creatures, sacrifice them, or fling them. And there are plenty of cards in the game to do it. And again, I'll go over it one more time. With mana, green's going to be your priority. You want to play your big ass green guys because they're awesome. So we're going to count this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 green guys. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 red. Then count all the ones that cost 2 or more green. So I lost count. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So count all the guys that cost 2 or more now in only green. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. That costs 3, so we count it one more time. Those 19, 20. So green is definitely going to need a lot more. So this, I might go out of the 17 land. Let's see. Yeah, out of 17 land, I would suggest maybe you'll need more green than you needed blue in the last deck. So maybe you want to get this out. Like I said, main priority is to get these big green guys out. But then again, keep in mind that you are never going to want to sit with that fling and not be able to use it. So instead of going way over to the green, keep it more balanced than you normally would when you count all this up, because you're always going to want to be able to play that fling. So maybe 11 forest and 6, or no, I don't know if that would be. Yeah, I'd go 11 forest and 6 mountains. And the reason only 6 mountains is you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards that can go and search for it. So if you only have, in a 40 card deck, if you have 6 mountains, it sounds hard to get, but count these things that are going to search for mountains as mountains. So you have 6 mountains plus 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 things that can technically be mountains, or they're going to provide you with mountains. So that will balance itself out. And more, you'll likely draw one too. Alright. I think it's about time I end this video. I'm pretty sure it's been over an hour, or this video is looking to be over an hour. So here's a nice shot of my unicorns, by the way. I collect them. Firstly, I like to say, before people start pointing this out, is I know I'm not the most qualified person to teach new Magic players how to build decks or how to strategize, because I myself am not the most brilliant Magic player out there. I'm mediocre at best, but I don't see a lot of other videos out there helping new players. Most of the videos jump straight into the assumption that the person watching it is already a pretty advanced and knowledgeable player in Magic the Gathering, which is not always going to be the case. So this video is aimed towards the newer players. Hopefully more experienced players enjoyed the opening, but it's not. The rest of the video was obviously not enjoyable for experienced players. Secondly, I'd like to just point out and give credit to where credit is due, that I was inspired to do a toolkit opening by Toxic Music, so I will put a link to his channel. He's very helpful. I've actually learned quite a bit from him, because he talks about strategies and things that I don't always think about myself, and right now he's doing an awesome series for a land destruction deck. So check that out if you're interested. And now it's time to end the video. Thank you for watching. If you're interested in what I'm doing, which will be appealing to newer players, feel free to subscribe, and or at least come check back, because I'm going to be doing other helpful videos. And I think my next project for a video will be, while I have the spare time, will be to go over all the abilities, or at least the mostly seen abilities in Magic. So flying, trample, haste, lifelink, death touch, first strike, double strike, things like that, and explain what they do and just help people out in case they don't know. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. Bye.